Hello, my name is Mike Schell and I'm with AirTest Technologies. We're a Vancouver-based sensor company that makes a wide variety of sensor technologies for buildings that can save energy or increase operational efficiency. Today we're going to talk about AirTest's hosted cloud monitoring and alarm platform called PointView that works with AirTest's new line of Wi-Fi sensors. So what we're going to cover today is, number one, a quick overview of AirTest Wi-Fi products, talk about the sensor setup process, and then also take a tour of the actual cloud-hosted website and what it looks like and what you can do with it. And then finally, we'll just talk about where you can go for further reference. So first of all the Wi-Fi products we have right now are available now. We will be adding some additional products in the near future, the first product, or one of the products we offer, is the CO2 and temperature sensor that is Wi-Fi communicating. We also offer a temperature and dew point sensor, or a temperature and RH sensor. We also offer a transmitter that actually can take the voltage or current input from an existing sensor and convert it to Wi-Fi. And finally, we have a temperature monitoring system that can provide remote probes with one or two probes that can be used to measure temperature in coolers, freezers, and a variety of other applications. One thing these all have in common is they can operate on battery power for up to 3 years, yet they also have an option that they can be line powered with low voltage and basically then will not require battery replacement. We figure that with these Wi-Fi sensors you can save about $700 to $3,000 per sensor by eliminating the installation costs related to installing wires. This is particularly true in retrofit applications where running wires can often be a challenge. All these sensors, we have ways to easily and inexpensively tie them into a building's wired control network. In this presentation, we're not going to talk about that, but there is another presentation available from AirTest that goes in more detail into all these wireless sensors and specifically describes how you can do that. This particular presentation is really going to focus on how to send sensor data to an AirTest hosted website. This is ideal for monitoring, not so much for control, though there is a way that you can use this site in conjunction with a control strategy. And we'll talk about that in a minute. One thing I did want to mention, this type of cloud monitoring site has been used a lot for temperature monitoring, where particularly for coolers, freezers, and incubators, there's a need to know when temperatures are too high or too low and may result in spoilage of whatever is in the freezer. Now, these temperature sensors, and the reason I'm talking about it is because this tends to be the most popular application for this type of cloud monitoring service. For the temperature sensor, it's provided with a wall-mounted bracket and a plug-in transformer. The transformer is usually located outside of the device where you're measuring temperature, so it can pick up a Wi-Fi signal, and then the probe is led into whatever container you're measuring temperature in. There are 3 probe options. One goes from -40 to 105 C, another goes from -80 to 125 C, and finally the third one can go down to down to -200 to 125 C. All these probes can be provided with a NIST 3-point calibration option. And the applications are, again, coolers, freezers, and incubators. We've also seen people interested where there are data centers and electronic cabinets measuring temperature of motors and compressors to detect conditions that might lead to failure. Also, we have some people doing monitoring of refrigerant and compressor lines to get a better idea of what the real-time efficiency of the cooling equipment is. And then, of course, if you're in a process or a building and feel you need some additional temperature measurements in some location, this is a very easy way to add that temperature measurement capability. Now, the way the web logging works is, let's say we have our Wi-Fi communicating sensors in a space, and it communicates to a local Wi-Fi router. That router is then connected to the internet and sends the information directly to the AirTest PointView website that's located in the internet cloud. Once the data is there, you can access the data using a tablet, smartphone, or PC by just going to the website and logging in. And you can see all your sensor data, download it, and do a number of other things as well. One additional feature that we've just added to this is that if you wanted to send that data somewhere else, there is now an option that you can actually have the data as it's received sent off to a SQL database, a Internet Protocol controller, or some other device like the BabelBuster 2 that we offer that actually can take the signals from the Wi-Fi sensors and translate them into BACnet or Modbus objects for a traditional building control system. So it is possible to take the sensor data, send it to the AirTest cloud. The AirTest cloud will then forward it really any place on the internet. So in terms of getting started with the web logging, the first thing you have to do is order a web logging account from AirTest. There's a nominal fee, about $20, and one account can support an unlimited number of sensors. Here you can see the login for the PointView system. And then basically all you have to do is order logging time for each of the sensors. And that's done in a package that's called a sensor month logging credit. And basically what it involves is a small monthly fee for each 1 month logging period for each sensor. It applies to all sensors that are registered to an account. If you're not going to be using sensors for a while, you can deactivate those sensors and they will not be charged sensor months. And they can be bought from AirTest in 12, 24, or 36 sensor month packages. Also, just if you want to try this out, if you're buying the Wi-Fi sensor, you can get free login for the first month, though you will have to buy the $20 account. Once you have the account and the web logging months, then you can configure the sensor with a PC interface. And this PC interface utilizes a USB cable that actually plugs into the sensor and plugs into your computer. And then there's software that's also available. You can order this from AirTest, and it allows you to configure the device. Configuration primarily means you identify where the information from the sensor is going to go. There's two ways of doing that. With the software, you can either designate where to go, and that would be done if you have a particular database or IP-based controller where you'd send the information, or you can actually use what's called the setup wizard if you're going to be using the AirTest hosted website. And there's really this wizard. This is a screenshot of it. There are 5 simple steps to set it up. Number 1, when you plug in your sensor and activate the wizard, it will actually show you this screen and say, let's get the information from the sensor. It retrieves the sensor parameters, and you can see actually at the bottom now of that window, you can see the serial number of the sensor and the type of sensor it is, in this case a temperature and CO2 sensor. The next step is to find a local network, and if you know the network login, you can basically pick the first or the second choice there. The first choice is look for available networks, and we'll do that. And in this case, we've seen that there are 3 possible networks, and we're going to pick the first one and input the network data for that network. Once we've done that, basically the sensor is updated with that login information. So it will, from now on, be able to log into the network and send its information. Once it's logged into the network, the next thing is to make sure the sensor is logging in to your AirTest cloud hosted account. In this case, I've called my account AirTest Mike, and there's a password to log in. And basically, when I press this button, the software registers the sensor with my account in the cloud. You can see here's the registering process, and then basically there's a test that the system goes through, the software goes through, just to make sure that data is actually being sent to the website. Basically, it checks it. Here it says it's been successfully set up and registered with PointView. Then you can actually just go to the website and see the data from the sensor. And so we log in to the system, and the first screen we see is actually this screen, which gives a summary. Here I have 4 sensors on this account, and basically on this summary screen for view sensors, it gives us the channel name telling us what is the parameter that's being measured. The value is the most current reading of the sensor. The unit is the type of value, ppm or degrees F, and so on. Age is the last time that the information was received from the sensor. And finally, there's a status indicator where a check mark would indicate everything is operating fine. A finger point hand signal indicates that there has been a service button pressed on the device itself to indicate something going on there. For example, when everything is set up, you might press the service button on the unit, and that provides a timestamp as to the measurement at that particular time. Also, you can see there's a low battery indicator if the battery is getting low. And one other thing is that if you actually click on the sensor name on this screen, you will actually link to all the sensor historical readings. And this is the view data page where you can actually look at historical readings of the sensor. And if we take a look, there's a graph there that shows data for the selected time range. It's also possible to overlay up to 4 different transmitters and their readings on the graph. The time range can actually be set and customized for what you see on the graph, and also that would include if you wanted to export the time range that you'd export. The arrows on either side actually allow you to look at older or newer data than that is being displayed on the screen. And then specific values on the graph for a sensor. As you move your cursor across the line, you can see that little arrow and dot there. It will actually indicate at the bottom of the graph the actual temperature, well in this case the actual temperature and dew point at that particular point. At the bottom is actually alarm events or activations of the service button that have been listed underneath the graph. One example of using this is you could actually put a device in a space, place it, press the service button, and that's a flag to say, all right, we've made the measurement there. Then you could move it to another location, press the service button, and another timestamp would be established. In terms of the service button, this is where they're located on the different devices, so either on the front cover of the unit or in the top of the unit in the case of the current and voltage transmitter or the remote temperature monitor. When we go into the web login, basically here we see the summary screen again, but we can go into the Manage Accounts tab in the middle, and we can go to My Information, which provides a profile of the person who is currently logged in. We also can see information on the company info, and basically then you can also do an Edit Users, where you can add users, each with their own ID and distinct login, which allows us to track alarm response activity. So if there's somebody designated as a responder, we can actually see when they responded and what they did. The Tools and Info tab just basically has the latest copy of the PointView software. So in managing sensors, we also have an option in terms of the actual sensors themselves to pick a particular sensor that you can see at the top here, and then set what time zone it's in, basically the login interval. In this case, we've selected 2 minutes. It's important to note, though, that there is a data logger on board the sensor that can record up to 3,070 different data points, so that if you didn't need the information in real time, you were just collecting historical data, you could have this thing broadcast log every minute, log every 10 minutes, log every 15 minutes. And I've got to make this distinction here. This is logging, not broadcasting, so how often it takes a measurement. But in terms of broadcasting, you can actually set the transmit period to whatever you would like. Broadcasting every 10 minutes typically will give you a 3-year life on the battery. The most critical energy consuming device on these sensors is actually the radio itself that's broadcasting the message. So the more infrequently you can broadcast, the longer the battery life. But again, 10 minutes will roughly equal about 3 years of operating life. Transmission tries, basically in some cases the sensor may not be able to broadcast on the first try. This indicates how many times it should try before giving up and waiting to the next broadcast period. This selection can also affect battery life, obviously. Offline time is basically you can program an alarm to go off that if it's tried to broadcast for a certain period of time, in this case an hour, it will sound an alarm that the sensor is offline. You can also program an alarm for a low battery threshold. Here it's set to 10%. And then if you wanted to have an alarm when, if the sensor was line powered, there was no line power, you can actually program an alarm. Down at the bottom here, there are some advanced settings that you can do, which includes adjusting the measurement hysteresis and a calibration offset for the sensor. Down lower on the same page, you can actually manage the settings of the sensors. And in this case, for example, you can see that we have a channel 1 setting, channel 2 setting, and that represents the 2 sensors that are on board the sensor. You can set a high and a low alarm for each channel and actually say what that is. And you can also set basically a time period that has to occur before that alarm actually occurs. So in this case, we've selected 1 minute. If the actually the upper sensor is over 2000 ppm, a high level alarm is sounded, but that has to take place for 1 minute. It is also possible with this sensor to set up a number of different users, and this is just the new user screen where you can create a distinct login and identification for each sensor user. Users would typically be either people who are responding to alarm or supervisors who are making sure that all alarms are responded to. And what this allows us to do, giving everybody a separate identity, we can track response to alarms by individuals responsible. And with this program, you can actually identify specific responders responsible for specific sensors. So let's say if it's by location or whatever. You can add an unlimited users, and you can add actually up to 5, let's say, supervisors who would get escalation alarms if, for example, there is not a response to an alarm within a certain period of time. And this just shows the screen where you can pick at the top the user. Here I have 2, AirTest Mike and AirTest Bob, and down at the bottom you can actually just say what sensor should that person be responsible for, and then you can actually even define what alarms you want sent to that user. And you can take a look at the alarm categories there. When an alarm goes off, there's an option to do either an email message or a text message, or actually both. When this alarm is received, basically it's the responsibility of the person receiving the alarm to go to the website, log in, and see what's going on. So they log in, and basically they have to acknowledge the alarm and update the status, and also there's a place for them to add notes. And this is, for example, if I had received an alarm, I went in, this particular dew point sensor, we've gotten 2 offline messages regarding it, and now I'm gone in and said, yes, the alarm has been triggered, I acknowledge that, and let's say I'm heading to the site to make sure it's being taken care of. And so actually that message could be put in the comments section. If you want to see a history of all the alarms and responses, they are available by actually clicking on the actual sensor underlined itself there. That's possible from many points throughout this program. Also, in terms of alarm escalation, if that's something of interest to you, again, up to 5 users or supervisors can be identified to receive escalation messages. Basically, in the company profile, you go in, and one of the preferences in the lower box there, you can see the second check mark down is Enable Alarm Escalation. Underneath that, then you can actually set the conditions for the alarm escalation, and then identify the escalation users. It is also possible with these sensors to actually put them in different groups. So, for example, you could put them in groups related to where they're located, particular service areas, maybe particular customers or clients, or really any criteria that you want. And I think the interesting thing is, once you have that grouping of sensors, if you want to forward that information somewhere else, for example, as I talked about in the beginning, to an SQL database, an Internet Protocol controller, or other web services, it's very easy to do that. You just pick the group, highlight the group, and then basically press sensor forwarding, and then input the IP address where the data should go. Now, an important thing to remember here, that if where you're sending the data, like a controller, sits behind a firewall, then you're going to have to poke a hole through the firewall in order for that information packet from the sensor to be forwarded to the destination. You're going to have to talk with the IT department wherever it's going and make sure you have a secure, safe way to do that. Well, that's really the summary of, oh no, we've got a little bit more yet. That's right. Now, this section just talks about the kind of reports that are available. Number one, sensor status report really gives us the current operating status of sensors, and that was actually the previous slide here. And then basically we have a sensor detail report, which goes into just describing the technical aspects of the sensors that are reporting in. We have a sensor event report that really just gives a summary of every operational event of the sensor. This includes if the service button was pressed, if it was powered up, if it came online, and so on. There's also an alarm acknowledgement report where we can go and see, all right, these are the alarms and these are responses that we've gotten from the responders to the sensor alarm. It's also possible to export data. Whatever page you're on, you can go to reports and select export data, and you have an option of exporting the data that you see in a PDF, in a Word document, or a comma delimited format that can be read on an Excel spreadsheet. And this just shows again, here we are on the view data report. If we wanted to export the data that we have within the time range shown here, we just press export data and a file would be exported. Well, that's really the overview of the PointView web logging service. Now, if you'd like some more information, you can just pause the video at this point in time to write down these links. If you want to go to the website where the wireless products are, you just go to our main website, which is airtest.com, navigate to products, and then wireless products. And then further information, I've done up sort of a special link that has a number of these links showing here, plus a few others that you can use if you just want more information on AirTest products, and in particular the Wi-Fi products. If you have any questions, please feel free to call AirTest, and we can support you in whatever questions you have. Also, please feel free to contact me at mike@airtest.com. Again, thanks for your time, and if you have any questions, please contact us. Thank you. Bye-bye.